Get ready for your weekly dose of pixie dust with Dizney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Dizney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today Chris is back to talk more about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, this time about the merchandise. Hello, Chris.
Hey.
This is your favorite area of this is your area of expertise.
This is what I like to do.
Great. Let's jump into that conversation right now.
It's time to dive into today's Disney dialogue.
Okay, so Chris, let's just face it. This was the thing you were looking most forward to about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things where, I don't know, for me at least, the memorabilia, the knickknacks you pick up along the way on some of these things, I don't know. It just helps you remember it. I just love having stuff hanging around every now and again. I go, I've got too much junk and I have to purge it all and figure stuff out. But I don't know. I just love merch, and I love especially exclusive merch. It's like one of my favorite things.
I'm pretty much the complete opposite. I'm like, do I need that? Do I really like it's if I see something I like, I'll get it. But there are so few things that I see and want. I didn't buy anything other than food at Galaxy's Edge. I don't regret it. There was one print I'm still considering maybe getting, but it's not even like an exclusive day one thing or anything. But I've
gotten better though. Like there were times where
have you really? Because that's terrifying to know.
I have. I would. There was a time where like if it was even remotely interesting to me, I'd be like, I gotta get it. Now I try to kind of look forward to what am I going to do with this? Where is it going to go is the main question because, you know, space is limited in the house now. So it's like, if I don't have a place for it, what's going to happen to it?
That's what stopped me from getting the print I wanted. I was like, I have so much like artwork and posters and stuff that I want to hang. I am out of wall space. And, you know, I'll hold on to something I really like in the hopes that one day I will have the wall space for it. But yeah, you really love it, and we certainly don't have to give a number here. But can you just admit you spent an extraordinary amount of money yesterday on merchandise?
Let's say this: I had a number going into the day.
Oh, did you?
At which I wanted to kind of cap it.
Okay. And
I kept it to there, if not like $100 or $200 lower.
Okay. All right. You had a pretty nice cap going in.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Anyway, so
I also knew that, you know, this was kind of, I wanted to do this for the podcast and talk about some of the merch. So I justified it. You know what I mean?
You totally did. I know you're telling yourself that so that your wife doesn't murder you. You've said that to me several times throughout the day. You're like, I'm doing this for research, man.
Research, dude. It's for the greater good.
The podcast and the listeners appreciate it. But in any case, let's start with the merchandise before even getting into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, because you were very much interested in the opening day merchandise. There were specific items that said, you know, opening day, May 31st, 2019. And this was stuff, first of all, if the listeners don't know this, all merchandise that says Galaxy's Edge on it is sold outside of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge because it wouldn't fit into the quote-unquote theming of Batuu. So everything in Batuu, I say everything loosely, and we'll discuss that more later, but everything in Batuu is supposed to be local to the land. The local craftspeople should have created it and all that such storyline stuff going on there. So anything that says Galaxy's Edge is sold in Tomorrowland or other areas of Disneyland Park. And because of that, the opening day merch was sold in several locations. We had Pooh's Corner, we had Star Traders, we had the Emporium, and primarily second floor of Launch Bay. And so that's where we headed, right when we entered the park. And if you remember from our overview episode, we were talking about how easy it was to park, how easy it was to get through security, easy to get through the gate, take the tram, all that stuff. Then we get to Launch Bay.
Before we even get there, I wanted to just quickly talk about, there was enough merch, and I think it was very difficult to figure out where certain merchandise was going to be sold because the information was kind of
it changed. So I had read
and it crisscrossed. So for example, like they'd say opening day merch is available at these places, blah 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 blah. If you want day one exclusive stuff, it's mostly at Launch Bay. But it was just weird. There were so many places, and they were scattered throughout the park. It was a real hard, and you'd go into some place like, what was it, the traders there?
Star Traders.
You'd go into Star Traders, and you'd think they'd have all the same stuff listed at all the other locations, but it turned out they didn't have, for example, some of the, annual pass holder, jumbo pins for stuff, but they had the other annual pass holder exclusive pins, and so it was just really weird. And then some of them you could only get again at Launch Bay and stuff, but it was just weird to figure out where certain things were being sold. And I would have liked to have seen some more, precise information, an exact, listing of what was offered and where.
And we did the research. Like, we looked beforehand, and like the way I read it, it said those 4 locations I mentioned would have the day one merch. That's what I read. And then that wasn't 100% true when we got there.
And true. And then also, it was one of those situations where, show us what this merch is beforehand. Because I feel like a lot of the holdup, especially with lines and a lot of these people, is sifting through everything and deciding, do I want this, do I not want this?
I'm going to tell you why they don't do that. Because the merch is not that great. Like, can we agree, at least as far as T-shirts go, the designs were not very good. Yet, if you've waited in a 2-hour line and woke up at 6 a.m. to get to Disneyland, are you more likely to spend the $35 because you stood in a line for 2 hours and woke up early? And the answer is yes.
Well, for the white T-shirts, the answer was absolutely no. There was plenty.
But what if you weren't an annual pass holder and couldn't have bought the AP shirt? I would bet you $100 you would have bought the white one.
No.
I
wouldn't have done it.
I don't believe you.
I wouldn't have done it.
I don't believe you.
Nah,
Chris, I know you.
I promise you. You look at my look. Have you ever seen me wear a white shirt in the entire time I've known you?
Okay, fine.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But yeah, so in any case, we went to Launch Bay, and the big line was for the merch. It was not for people picking up their wristbands. As we spoke about earlier on the previous episode, the wristbands were very, very easy to deal with. The merch, on the other hand, what did we wait?
So we got there. We got in line for the merch.
7:30.
We beelined it. We walked through. We skipped the Emporium entirely because they said that the day one exclusive items were sold at the Launch Bay. So we went directly there in Tomorrowland. We get there, and the line didn't seem to be that bad at first.
Now, it wasn't open yet. We got there 7:30. The park opened at 8. So, we had to wait outside of Launch Bay.
Yeah, and so Launch Bay has that ramp that goes up and kind of spirals around Launch Bay. And then about halfway down, it backtracks and spirals its way up further, right? Mm-hmm. And that whole entire up and down, ramp and spiral was it had a line there along one side. It wasn't packed. They still had one half of that walkway free, and people were just single file going up there. It didn't really look that bad to me. And we got in pretty much right at the bottom of that ramp, right? Mm-hmm. But that was just the beginning.
Yeah.
Looks can be deceiving with that one.
Yeah, there was a hidden queue inside of Launch Bay upstairs, which really stunk.
So basically, once you worked your way up and around this entire thing, and they let you into the doors, you're thinking, oh, this is great. Here we go. Merch time. As soon as you go in, you round this corner, and you're in another line that goes down this starship-looking hallway and stuff like that. And you're like, oh, man, another line. I wonder how far this goes. You wait in that line for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, and you leave the hallway only to find another entire gigantic ballroom packed with crisscrossing lines of people waiting in this queue. And so you have another line to get to. And finally, once you break through that line, they let you into the gift shop, and you could kind of browse some of the merch that they offered there. And then at the same time, they shoot you off to the registers, where there's yet another line. But those went
the registers,
quick.
I will
registers
say,
were fast.
They had a lot of registers. They took care of the people that way. It was a 2.5, 3 hour wait, I think. 3 hours.
Yeah, it was about 2.5 to 3 hours that we were waiting there. But here's the other thing that really was annoying, right, about it. The check-in for your wristbands was right at the bottom of Launch Bay. Mm-hmm. A lot of people waiting there for the wristbands were getting in the line for Launch Bay, for merchandise up on the second tier. Why they didn't have somebody walking around checking IDs and scanning and handing out bracelets while you were in line is beyond me. Because we ended up having to, make agreements with people ahead and behind us in line, duck out run down, check into our thing, and then come back up and resume our place in line, which is kind of crazy. They were right there.
And thank you very much to the people who allowed us to do that, if you happen to be listening. That was very nice of you to let us do that. But yeah, it was crazy. And then once we got inside, like, listen, 5 minutes, I was like, nothing here I'm interested in. I'm done.
Yeah, but you're not really.
But that's not my thing. But even you went through pretty quickly. I think probably because you knew we didn't have a ton of time. Yeah. But was there anything in there that really excited you?
Yeah, oh, well, the other thing I'll say is this. We didn't know what was being sold until we got up to the second tier of this launch bay thing. And I saw, like, there was just kind of a security guard or somebody or a personnel standing there, and they had something in their hand, a piece of paper, and it turned out to be the list of a lot of the merch that they were selling exclusively here at the launch bay and stuff. And for the most part, for me, I was there primarily for the kind of exclusive pins and stuff. They have some really beautiful looking ones. A lot of jumbo pins and stuff, a 4-pin box set that they had, you know, all that good stuff, and some of the annual pass holder, you know, limited releases and stuff. So I was primarily there for that stuff. Some of the clothing didn't really do it for me. A glow lanyard wasn't really my jam. A patch I didn't really care about. So, you know, ultimately that's kind of what they had. I was really hoping for something like, you know, just a really beautiful opening day poster or print or something. Now, they had some beautiful prints there that were kind of pre-matted, you know? But I just wanted a dedicated, you know, one of their own dedicated posters for it with writing worked into the print itself instead of it just being a picture, you know what I mean?
That I absolutely would have... So that I'm more interested in. Like, even if it was the ugly image that was on a T-shirt, but as a poster print... I'm not saying I would have gotten it because I didn't think it was a great image, but I would have been much more likely to buy that as a poster than as a T-shirt. I really like posters. I really like theme park prints and such. And I wish that they did that a lot. I've gotten some cool ones, but like kind of as free giveaways. Like I remember Splash Mountain's 25th anniversary, they gave us a really cool print for that. And I've gotten some cool stuff like that, but they don't tend to sell attraction posters very much, or, you know, anniversary posters very much. It's a weird thing, but I wish they did. And, oh, I'm going to go on a tangent here for a really quick second related to Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights, because, do you know what I'm going to tell you? Oh, so last year during Halloween Horror Nights, they released the first image of Stranger Things as part of Halloween Horror Nights, and they tweeted out this image. And I tweeted back, I'm not saying I'm responsible for this, but I tweeted back and I was like, please sell this as a poster print. I had never seen them sell poster prints of stuff before. Now I own that because they sold it at Halloween Horror Nights. So I'm telling you, Disney, if you make poster prints of this cool stuff, I will give you money for it. Like, that is the stuff that I get excited about.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know how much it costs on the overhead side of things to make a metal pin.
Yeah. I'm sure a print is much cheaper.
Limited edition prints for events like that people can frame and put up and stuff like that. I don't know. I feel like the overhead's way lower and you can have way more of a profit margin.
You team up with Mojo. It's Mojo, right? Is that the company that you go through?
No, I like who did the Alamo Draft House.
No, like your Iron Man and your...
You mean the Iron Giant?
Iron Giant,
sorry. How dare you call it Iron Giant.
Sorry. I know. Trust me, one's good, the other's not.
They're both good.
Iron Giant's good.
They're both... but no, that's basically Mondo.
Mondo, sorry. That's what I was thinking of, yeah.
The Alamo Draft House in Texas does these limited edition, or, you know, these limited edition beautiful prints by a bunch of, you know, artists and stuff, and for movies and film posters, and they're just really, really beautiful. They do limited runs of like 2,000 or something like that, and they sell like hotcakes, and usually go up on eBay like seconds after being sold. So, you know, at huge inflated prices.
Just like Disney pins. But Disney, if you're listening, please start selling poster prints in normal sizes. That's the other thing that drives me crazy, is when they decide to sell prints of stuff in abnormal sizes so you can't just buy a standard frame at Michael's. Please, just give us a normal size and sell these things. In any case, I digress. Shall we get into Galaxy's Edge? Okay, cool. So as I was mentioning, the story in Galaxy's Edge is that everything that's sold there was made by the locals, so it has a very handcrafty feel, whether it's a metal or a wood or, you know, looks hand-stitched or whatever, which is cool. I actually really love and appreciate that. Even the casing that this stuff comes in looks like authentically local. Except for one thing. Did you happen to notice this one thing that had Galaxy's Edge all over it.
No.
And everybody had it that did shopping. The bags they're selling. So Disney is, they're going through this whole no plastic bag use, so they sell you those reusable bags. And all of those reusable bags are they just say Star Wars Galaxy's Edge all over them. So everybody's carrying around this authentic merchandise inside these Galaxy's Edge bags. Talk about killing the story. Drove me nuts. I couldn't believe they did that.
I didn't even notice it because to me that, look at when you're pulling out your Chase credit card, that's a pause, that's a break in the story anyways to begin with.
There are credits on your credit card.
Yeah, sure, whatever helps you sleep at night. But at the same time, it's like it pauses.
Why go that far? Why go that far? And I know exactly why. Trust me. No, the merch people probably had nothing to do with that. That was last minute, like, oh, we're not doing plastic bags because, that's no longer good for the environment. So we're going to do the reusable bags. Great. First of all, how cool would it have been to have like an authentic fabric reusable bag instead of like it was one of those like recycled plastic bottle bags, but like what's a burlap bag that was like themed to Galaxy's Edge? How cool would that have been? Here's the thing.
Would have been great. Would have been really cool. But then, it's one of the things, man. It's like you're walking around in nothing Galaxy themed, Galaxy Edge themed or blending in with the environment. We're walking around with, baseball caps on it with dinosaurs or it's just like we as the audience members weren't blending in. So why, if we're going to be carrying bags, they don't have to necessarily blend in themselves.
They're telling the story. We're entering their story. It's just, to me, it was just such an epic fail because they went so far.
Epic fail is definitely harsh, though.
I mean, everybody had those bags. It was crazy. And the amount of merchandise sold yesterday or, opening day was insane. I don't know. That just really bothered me. I was like, oh, so close. And I will say, if certain things, like, I went into certain shops and, would turn around to look at the price or whatever, and it would say Star Wars Galaxy's Edge on it, small and a little label, that I can forgive. But it was a little, the bags drove me crazy. In any case, let's head to Savi's workshop, where we went to build a lightsaber, and this is where we spent the majority of our day. It was the first place we went because you knew going in. You're like, I want to build a lightsaber, and so let's go do that. I hear it fills up. And it does fill up.
Yeah, there are three, when you're looking at merch, there's really 4 kind of sections of it. You have the Lightsaber Workshop is one. You've got the Droid Depot, which is the second thing. You've got, what's his name? Ondok's Den of Antiquities, which is the third, which is a really cool thing. And then you've got basically the creature shop or the creature stall, which is kind of the fourth thing. And then I guess you can include maybe just smaller little knick-knack market things for merch. And we'll talk about a couple of these things. I myself didn't get to experience too much of the random markets and stuff around.
Super cute.
I didn't get to duck my head into many of those because, as you'll hear why in a minute here. And you did the Droid Depot.
The Droid Depot was awesome, and we'll get to that.
Which we'll talk about. I didn't get a chance to do that either. And Ondok as well. You got to peek your head in.
No, I didn't really. That's the one with the legacy lightsabers, right?
Yeah, that's the one with the door. That was
didn't get to go there. I mean, I saw the door open and close, but there was always a line for that. That's the one place I didn't actually get to go into, which I'm bummed about because there are animatronics in there, they're aliens. So I wish I got to see that. Something to do in the future. But I did check out all the other shopping options.
So let's dive in. The gates opened and out. Just the first thing that we did was we ran straight to the Lightsaber Workshop.
Not a Lightsaber Workshop. It's scrap metal.
I'm sorry. We went right to the scrapyard.
Yeah, Savi's workshop.
And I was panicking and asked somebody, where can I build a lightsaber? And they were like, what is this lightsaber? You mean scrap metal? I'm like, all right, dude.
Yeah.
Point me in the direction of this thing.
So just so listeners know, the story behind this is that you've got to protect the shop's secrecy to avoid being discovered by the First Order, because if the First Order knew that lightsabers were being made inside of here, there would be trouble. So everybody outside of this building, they're like, we're just selling scrap metal. Of course, when we go inside, we use the scrap metal to build ourselves a lightsaber. So in any case, continue.
Beautiful story. And...
It sounded sarcastic, even though I know you weren't.
It was genuine. And so we go into so basically there's an outer courtyard around which you kind of would queue up, so to speak. And when we went in, it was interesting because there's no stanchions anywhere, but they still laid down like
the tape, yeah.
Orange tape along the ground. And
which,
stuff,
I mean, the plan is eventually, and that I will, you know what, I actually like the tape thing, and I'll tell you why real quickly, because in the past, they used to make holes in the ground to put stanchions everywhere, and after the first 6 months or whatever, crowds just die down naturally, and then you've had like these leftover stanchion marks for eternity. Yeah. This temporary tape that they use, they're smart, I feel, these days. They're like, this is a temporary insanity right now. So they put down the tape like they do for parades, and, you know, you're dealing with that in that situation.
But I just found it humorous. But basically, we went in there, and we immediately got into line. And the line didn't look very long. It looked like it maybe was 40 people, 50 people at most long. It basically wrapped around the outside wall, past, like, the stairways to the Den of Antiquity area, and then kind of wrap back around, and we weren't quite sure the process yet at this point. And so we kept asking people, and nobody could give us the same answer. So we ended up asking somebody, how long is this line that we're waiting in? Somebody said it was going to take 2 hours just to get to the registers to pay for the experience, and that kind of sets in motion the lightsaber building. Other people said it was just 20 minutes until you get up to the cash register, and then you could walk around and they'll text you when they're done or when you're available or something. Tons of misinformation, but here's the real deal.
Yeah, there was a lot of different stories from different cast members, which is always an annoying thing. I was like, it's opening day, I get it. You're still figuring this stuff out, but as a guest, it's always annoying when you're getting different stories from cast members. But in any case, so we wait in that long line. That long line was probably about 2 hours. Now, I will say it was a good situation, and God bless the lovely family in front of us who their son and grandson was on a birthday vacation, and oh my gosh, Grandma waited in that line the whole day while he ran off and did other stuff and came back. And lovely kid, if you're listening, just cherish those family members there. But in any case, like, you got to run off for a little bit, I got to run off for a little bit. They were cool about, hey, like, as long as there's somebody in line, you can come and go.
Let's start here. We get in line. We're waiting there for a while, and I hear that it's going to be maybe 40 minutes. I'm like, Jeff, wait here for me. I'm going to go check out the cantina if I can. Right?
Yeah.
So I run over to the cantina. It's on lockdown already. Like, there were so many people in the first group that came through earlier that morning that it wasn't even open at the beginning of our time frame. So we're like, okay. I come back to Jeff. Jeff's like, hey, they tell me that if we come back, as long as we're in line like 5-10 minutes before the end of our hour, they'll let us continue through to build the lightsaber. And I'm like, I don't really trust that. I'd rather just stick it out. So we stick it out, and I'm glad we did, because within, I'd say, probably an hour of us waiting there, they capped it already. Yeah. So anybody that came looking for a lightsaber, they had people waiting right there to turn them away. They just couldn't do it.
And unlike the cantina, this one does not reopen for the rest of the 4 hours. It basically got capped after an hour, and 3 hours later it would reopen. But so here's the thing that was frustrating. So a big major chunk of this, I'd say 2 hours of this, was waiting to buy your lightsaber. So you pay in advance, you make some choices in advance, and that took 2 hours. There's no reason for this process to take 2 hours, and I'm going to try and explain this quickly, but basically, they break you up into colored groups, green, orange, blue, whatever. And they have a certain amount of cards. What is it, 14 people build at a time, I think?
I think there's around 14 people that go into a room to build at once. So like, those first 14 would be like the blue-colored cards, and they each get a blue-colored card, and you'd wait until the blue color was called, and then you would go in and build your lightsaber.
Okay, so Chris, how many blue cards do you think they would make if 14 people are allowed in?
14.
Yeah, they made 14 of those cards, and only 14. So instead of like having a blue group that was like blue A, blue B, blue C, or whatever, they had so few cards that they would basically sell out one of the groups, and then you would have to wait the 20 or 25 minutes till the next group was called into the building so that they could collect those cards and then sell those cards to new people. It was an absurd process because you literally moved a few inches and stood for 25 minutes. Moved a few inches, waited another 25 minutes. It was insanity in my mind.
25 is being liberal. Like, it was more like 40 minutes.
It was crazy.
And so it was just one of those things where they didn't want to give if they gave two groups a blue card, that's...
First of all, it's the 21st century. Why are we handing out cards? I can't believe this wasn't a phone app situation. I can't believe this wasn't... I mean, if this were Orlando, this would have been a Magic Band situation. This would have been a much simpler process. I'll actually be very curious to see when Galaxy's Edge opens in Orlando in a few months, how they deal with this process. This was a broken process as far as I'm concerned. And broken in a way that wasn't like, okay, it's opening day, I'll be forgiving and give them time. This was something that, sitting down at the drawing board, seeing this on paper, they should have been like, red flag. This is not a good process.
It felt very temporary to me. And then by that I mean...
No, it didn't.
The cards that they gave you that had the colors on them were just laminated rectangles. There was no cool design. It wasn't supposed to look like a flight ticket voucher or like to build into the story. It just looked like they were going... We had a plan, a more elaborate plan to get a lightsaber that involved quest lines and having fun and stuff. We can't do that. What's the best quick solve we can do to kind of manage some of this or try to? And that's what they came up with.
I don't think that's the case. You may be right. I don't think that that's the case. But it was a terrible system. So let's just fast forward to, you have your card, you've paid, you've made your decisions. And by the way, I was able to watch this whole process because if somebody is buying a lightsaber, they can bring one guest with them and one only. So you get your thing. And at this point... we know it's essentially, we know there's like 3 or 4 groups ahead of us, which in our mind, we do the math. We're like, okay, that's like an hour and a half or whatever. And they're like, go away. But like, I wouldn't go more than 30 minutes because if we call your group and you're not here, like there's no refunds and there's no way of you getting in. And so like, they put that kind of fear in you. But at the same time, you're like, there is no way we're going to be even close to getting in 30 minutes. So there's just a lot of back and forth at this point, and it was not a great situation.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we ended up waiting, I think, 2 hours to pay and pick the lightsaber. We had like a 25, 30-minute break where we ran off to like do something, came back, and then waited another hour and some odd change, hour and a half or something, to get called into the actual lightsaber build. And so of the 4-hour window that we were assigned, roughly 3 hours and 45 minutes were eaten up just standing around in the sun. And the thing that kills me is, like Jeff said, it would have been so easy to just go in, you know, even if they capped it and no more people could do it, go in, pick the one that you wanted, pay for the one that you wanted, and they could say, great, based on the amount of people ahead of you, come back realistically in 2 hours. Yeah. Great. Then we could go and do some other fun stuff, come back when it was way closer to our time, get it, go. Even if we waited another half hour, 45 minutes to get in, that's still, you're waiting maybe an hour and 10 minutes, an hour and a half tops for everything. So it was very disappointing to only get to do essentially that one specific thing. And now it was a very cool thing, and we'll get into that in a second here. But
yeah, so that is something I have confidence they will change the system and make it work. But just go in knowing in these early days that it's gonna be the majority of your 4 hours if you decide to do that. So, but let's get to the cool part, shall we?
Yeah, and just another thing is, keep in mind because only 14 people build at a time, and it's roughly a 25-minute experience just for the build part, not to mention whatever resetting the cast members have to do or anything. There's a very finite cap of how many people can build lightsabers in a day. Mm-hmm. So that will always be a pretty packed and an early kind of cutoff for, I think, for a long time.
For a long time, yeah. But I mean, if people see, I keep doing this a lot with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, but the closest comparison is the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So if you've experienced Ollivanders, you know at the beginning, those were 2-hour waits. Sometimes these days you can walk on in 10 minutes. Eventually it will die down, but it will take over a year for that to happen. But this is Disney's response to Ollivanders, as a lot of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is Disney's response to the way that Wizarding World of Harry Potter changed theme park lands. I am 100% convinced Star Wars Galaxy's Edge would not exist if it weren't for the existence of the Wizarding World of Harry Potter, and I would fight anybody who disagrees with that statement.
Please, someone listening, challenge him to that fight. I'd love it.
If somebody wants to, we can do a podcast all about it.
But I'd say this. that is the closest that you're going to get in terms of a comparison, but I don't think it's nearly there because Wizarding World, one kid person gets the experience of getting chosen, which is it's way more passive than building your own.
But it's also free, Ollivanders.
Well,
unless you decide to buy the wand, but you don't even have to buy the wand if they choose you. So you're getting an experience. So I mean, let's be fair. It's $200 versus free.
No, yeah, but what I'm saying is the reason why it died down there is because if just watching a kid have a wand choose him is not your jam for what you want to spend your afternoon doing, you're just not going to wait in the line for it.
Okay, fair enough.
Building a lightsaber is very much every kid's jam.
All right, sure. Let's talk about building the lightsaber.
All right.
So we go into the room, and there's basically 14 stations, and you get set up at a station. Now, before you go in, you actually, while in a 2-hour line, since you have plenty of time to choose things, they show you 4 options. And your options to build your lightsaber are peace and justice, power and control, elemental nature, or protection and defense. And each of these have very different looks to them. Some of them look, which one was it? It was elemental nature looked very like handcrafted and, it was made of teeth and wood, and it was very cool.
The Peace and Justice is a little bit more of the kind of chrome, modern-y looking lightsabers that you'd see like, Luke Skywalker having and stuff. You have Power and Control.
This is like used to be owned by the dark side, and I kind of love this one, but honestly, it was funny. There were 2 that everybody was interested in. It was, what was it?
I'll tell you. Power and Control, there was a good amount of people that wanted those, but those are more like, Darth Vader's lightsabers, Darth Maul, stuff like that. They had some black, some red hues to them, which was really kind of interesting and cool. The 2 that were selling out quickly were the Elemental Nature, and those ones had basically built into the design and the metal, you had these kind of beautiful like scroll work of vines and scroll work, and they had like leather wrappings around parts, and like there's one pommel cap that you could get. I think it's called a pommel cap or something, where it was a rancor tooth. You know what I mean? That's just a really, really interesting looking, lightsaber. Not something you see all the time. So a lot of people wanted that. And then the one that I think was I'd say the most popular of the day.
And I think you got this?
Yeah, this is the same one I got, was Protection and Defense. And these ones are all about like mysterious inscriptions and motifs that basically point back to the ancient wellspring of the Force, as they say. And so you have, they're more kind of gold and silver, and it's just very clean looking. They're old. It looks like old brass, tarnished silver and stuff. And it's really pretty and really cool thing. So that was one that people liked a lot.
So I'm going to say something here that will excite Disney pin collectors very much, because the way that they know which one you chose after you've purchased is you get a pin. They give you a pin. Included in this low price of $200 is a free pin where basically you wear that, and when you go in and stand at your station, that's how the people working inside know which tray to pull out for you. So they look at your pin, they pull out your tray, and in this tray you have several options for each component of your lightsaber. And that was pretty cool. And before that, I think the first step was choosing your jewel, right?
It is not a jewel, sir. It
crystal.
is a Kyber crystal.
Sorry.
How dare you? Yeah, so what's wonderful is when you first step in, it's this room, 14 people there, 14 workstations laid out in about a horseshoe-shaped pattern. And in the middle of that, there's a speaker who comes in, who introduces themselves and talks about why the scrapyard is so important, how it's maintaining the tradition of building lightsabers, and how, it's a necessary thing to be able to protect and fight against, the evil and the dark and stuff like that.
Of course, timed beautifully with music and lighting.
Beautiful
options.
music, right? And it has a really pretty story to it. And so they talk about the first thing that you have to do when you build your lightsaber is basically pick a Kyber Crystal. And a Kyber Crystal are at the center of every lightsaber. It's a lot like the various elements you can find in the Wizarding World wands, like, for example, unicorn hair or whatever, right? It's like that kind of thing. But they're just different colored crystals, and each color represents a different thing. Purple, for example, is about is representative of Force users who will use both light and dark side if necessary to, in balance to achieve, what they need. Whereas blue is very much just all about the light side. Red, obviously, all about the dark side. And I forget what green represented at the time.
Well, green was once Yoda's and...
Maybe it was knowledge or...
Yeah, I don't know the specifics. You're really getting Star Wars nerdy on me right
Yeah, but anyways, what's cool is they bring out they have you close your eyes, and then when they explain this to you, and you hear Jedi speak, right? Yoda speaks, about these Kyber crystals, and you can kind of hear his voice echoing in this chamber and stuff. And then they have you open your eyes, and there in front of you, they're holding these cases with all these shining Kyber crystals glowing in the dark, right? And so you have all these beautiful colors, and they walk around, and you pick the one that you want.
Yeah, and then you put it in your, what do you call it?
Yeah, you lay it down, and then they'll pull out the trays, and then they start to assemble it. And the first thing you have to do is you take the... I guess it's the insides of the lightsaber, which are kind of already pre-built in a way. It's very rudimentary, but inside that there's a little spring-loaded platform in the middle that you can kind of place the Kyber crystal on, and it's kind of pinched by the top and bottom. Think of it like in a vertical battery holder thing, how a battery gets kind of like held in by the top and bottom. This Kyber crystal is held in right there, and it kind of glows and makes a noise, and then you start to snap on and assemble the various pieces to this lightsaber.
Yeah, and they're there to help you. It's not, you have the decisions to make what pieces you want to take, and it's organized very well that way. It's basically like there's columns, and it's like, okay, this is for this portion of the lightsaber, choose which one you want, put it together, and you go through this whole process of putting it together. There's probably, like 5 sections to choose from? So there really are hundreds of different variations that you could make when all is said and done. Like, you really are making a unique lightsaber. It's not like you're making one of 4 options, but with all of the different decisions, I haven't done the math to figure out the variations, but there's hundreds of options.
Yeah, and you can mix and match. And the thing that, because for example, they say, on the left-hand side, you have 2 options that are for the bottom. It's for the handle of the lightsaber, right? And then they have on the right, to the right of that, there are 2 options that are identical in size that you would use for the top of the lightsaber. So one's for the bottom, one's for the top. I thought I had to pick, for the bottom, I needed to pick one of these 2. For the top, I need to pick one of these 2. But the truth be told, you can pick any of those 4 for the top and bottom because they're interchangeable.
Yeah.
So if you liked both from the left-hand side and you want to touch any from the bottom side, but you don't want any from the top, take that. Take those 2 because they'll still screw on. They still fit perfectly. And those are kind of interchangeable. And then you have an end cap, and then you have a top cap where the blade would kind of go into, and then you have the centerpiece that has the switch to turn your lightsaber on and off and stuff that clips together in the middle.
Okay, so I want to talk about something because I think this is super cool and is a solution to an issue that I have with lightsabers in general. But before I get to that, I do want to say, when we first heard about Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, in the beginning, there was a lot of talk about there's going to be a new generation of lightsaber when it comes to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And that got me very excited because as cool as the lightsabers are, I have one of those ones under my bed right now that they sold for $150 at Sharper Image that's essentially look exactly like what you get at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge with this experience, where it's a big white tube that comes out of it. And that's always been okay, if only we didn't need a big white tube, because in the movies they don't have big white tubes. I get it, an impossible want, but my head kind of went there when they were like, we're going to have a lightsaber unlike anything you've ever seen before. I was like, oh my gosh, they actually finally figured out a way to get rid of the tube. But within this showcase, they do essentially, the tube does not exist while you're in that room, because they do a very, very, very clever thing. And you essentially take this, is holster the right word? What's the
So you build the lightsaber hilt, the handle, the lightsaber itself, with no blade attached. And they come around and they say that we have to, calibrate or activate the blades or whatever. And they have cast members come through and they'll take the lightsaber hilt and they'll plug it in. There's there's a small little hole right underneath the workstation.
Yeah.
That they snap it into, and it kind of juts out at you. From this workstation, and it just everybody's in the entire room. So you have all these lightsaber handles jutting out of this workstation table, and then they tell you to basically approach, and we're all going to turn the lightsabers on together. And now right above that, on top of the workstation itself...
So still flat with the rest of the workstation.
Well, somewhat flat.
But
there's
clear.
There's a clear curved...
Oh, yeah, it was curved.
There's a clear kind of frosted glass curved dome thing. And so what happens is when you go and they tell you to turn it on, you flick the switch of this lightsaber, and it lights up this entire glass clear looking thing up on your workstation. And it looks awesome. It looks like you just activated a laser beam in this thing. And you're like, this is great. And then they hit a switch, and this clear glass dome kind of rotates over, and it basically opens up, and you can just lift your lightsaber already lit up out of this thing. So you never actually see them putting a blade in your lightsaber. It's as if you just flicked it, it came on, and you're holding it in there now.
Which is very cool and a very nice workaround, and I applaud that, and that is good storytelling. Of course, the second you step outside, shut it off, it's a clear white tube, story's done. But in that moment, I actually think it's quite genius and cool, because it would have been really lame if okay, here's your white tube, stick it in.
Yeah, it was a really fun thing, and everybody in the room gasped when that clear dome rotated over and you could pull that lightsaber out. People were like, oh my God. It was just really interesting.
And that was a very cool thing. It's a well done thing. Now, me personally, I would have not spent 4 hours doing that. I think you still would have, going in knowing that your entire day was going to be that, primarily. 90% that. Would you have still done it?
Yeah, I would have still done it, because that was building your own lightsaber was one of the things that attracted me the most to the land. And I wanted to get that experience. And like you said, there might be some changes down the road that they make to it to get more people in and out of there.
There should be a second room. It's mind-blowing that there's not.
But that's what I'm saying. That's why I think they could have planned from the blueprint stages when they built the park a second room. But anyways, but I just thought that, I'd go in there. I would have done it all over again. It was worth, if you wanted to build a lightsaber, it was worth the 4 hours. However... It's, I live in Southern California, so I'm a pass holder, so if I want to go back sometime, I can go back sometime.
Yeah.
Whereas some people who maybe don't live nearby and this is the one trip there, that's going to be a tougher choice.
I would say no, don't. But in any case, if you want to spend way less time and spend half the money, but still build something to take home, head over to the Droid Depot, which is what my buddy Preston did, and I got to watch him put that together. Now, in the Droid Depot, you're essentially visiting a workshop stocked with stacks of parts, chips, manuals, and other tech items useful for constructing your very own droid, one of the galaxy's most indispensable sidekicks. You get to pick from the popular BB series or R series unit, then begin designing, building, and activating your droid. And it's a very cool thing. I liked this more. I will admit, it is definitely not nearly as much of a production as building a lightsaber, but I thought it was really, really cool. When you get in there, the first thing you do is you go to a conveyor belt, and it looks like just like a conveyor belt you'd find in a
junkyard.
Yeah, in a junkyard. All these different parts going by, and you... when you buy it, when you pay, you choose what kind of droid you're going to be building, and there's a little cage you get, and it says these are the parts you need to collect. And you have different options for the parts. So as the parts go along, you just kind of look for what you want, see what you like, pick them up, put them in your basket.
And they're already pre-painted parts that come through, and so there's different there's a ton of different looks that you can do.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. And it was very fun. Just that visual of all the parts going by on the conveyor belt, I thought were super, super cool. And once you have your parts, you take it to a station, and that's where you start putting your droid together. And there's instructions there for you. They got a little drill hanging above. You got to take down the drill and drill some parts together. As we're doing this, whether it's the lightsaber or the droid, I always think it's funny when people convince you to pay them to put your own stuff together. That's hilarious to me. It's shouldn't we be paying you to do this for us? But, it's the experience, and I get it. But it does make me laugh. Once you have it together, one of the attendants come over and help you and take your remote control out and essentially do this little ceremony, and you hit these buttons and activate your droid, and it starts freaking out and stuff.
And they have different personality chips, right? Are they unique personalities?
I don't remember a personality chip. There may have been, but I don't remember that as part of of the
Interesting
thing. But I'm sure they do have different personalities. Once we had it in the box, it's very much like a Build-A-Bear box. As we were walking through Galaxy's Edge or Batuu, Preston would keep being like, he's freaking out. Like things were happening when he was in the box. So it was
depending on what because I think you can choose where you align yourself with either resistance or first order.
Oh, maybe that was one of the buttons he hit.
And when you do that, if you walk through if you're like, for example, resistance, and you walk through the first order section, it starts to freak out because it's sensing the other droids, in the first order area and stuff, and it's cool.
It's fun. This is definitely more for, younger people. I think would do better at this than the lightsaber. The lightsaber is more of a ritual. This is just more of a fun little thing. And it's fun. I highly suggest it's $100.
Yeah, so it's $100 versus $200.
Yeah,
really another customizable, fun, really cool experience. It's also worth noting really quick. I don't know. I didn't get to feel the BB units or the R units. I don't know what their weight was like.
They were heavy.
Are they metal? Or are they plastic?
The exterior pieces that you're putting together are plastic. The interior is like the motor and stuff is like heavy duty.
Yeah,
it's a toy.
Yeah, it's a toy you can play with at home. Yeah. Whereas the lightsaber, it's like, you light it up once a year, and other than that, it's like, what are you gonna do? You gotta like put it on a shelf.
I think the lightsabers, if I'm remembering correctly, I think you can hit them and stuff, and they'll make noises.
I don't know.
I think I read that, but
don't build one and then listen to Jeff. I'd research it.
Yeah, research it first.
Some kid just shatters.
Yeah, just research.
The lightsaber, it's worth noting though, is very heavy. It's like 3 pounds, and it's a pretty heavy duty metal, so it's really got a good feel to it. I mean, when you buy this, you're expecting it not to feel kind of cheap, and it does not. So that's a good thing. You mentioned there's some that you bought at Sharp Image, and other ones that kind of look similar to it. They are. I feel like this is just the heaviest duty of them all. Like I haven't felt one that was this solid. So
maybe you just built a solid lightsaber.
Maybe I did. Maybe it's just
it's all about your choices. Yeah. The droid thing, I will say I waited less than 10 minutes for. At certain points during the day, there was a long line, but like when we went, it was just like, come on in. And it's like, great. After, the lightsaber experience, I was thrilled to not wait long for that. So, but that's also a very cool experience. They're right next to each other. So lots of options to make toys specific or items specific to your wants and desires, which is cool.
Oh, there's one more thing, watch-wise, with the lightsabers. The 4 crystals...
You can't get past the lightsabers.
Well, I mean, there's a lot. I think if you're listening to this one, this cast specifically about merch, you're going to want details, right?
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things that bothered me about not going into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I didn't have many details. Sure. And it was frustrating. But yeah, you get those 4 crystals that you can choose from right there. Mm-hmm. So you got blue, purple, green, and red.
Yeah.
But then if you go into the on-dock Den of Antiquities, if you can get in there, they also, if you have a family member, a mom, or somebody who wants to go do it,
wait in that line,
you can zip in there, and they sell, I think, white and yellow as well.
So what do you have to take your lightsaber back apart? And then
you would just unscrew, because they all screw together and snap apart. So it's all threaded metal. So you can just unscrew the stuff and pull it apart again, and it's fine. I think the blade you have to push down and rotate. It's kind of like
Did they give you instructions? It comes with a little carrying case. Were there instructions in there?
No, I didn't see any.
Interesting. The droid, I know the little box that comes with like instructions.
I didn't investigate too deeply inside the case, the carrying case. But that's the other thing. When you leave the lightsaber workshop, on the way out, they hand you a long black, carrying case, like a padded carrying case for it, which is quite nice. And just so you know, you put the blade in first. I tried putting the handle in first, and you'll figure it out. That's not the right way, but blade in first, and it's nice. But you can buy crystals at On-Docks, and
they sell legacy lightsabers there as well, which means what? They're just already put together?
Well, at On-Dock, yeah. So the legacy lightsabers are specifically ones that are featured from other characters.
Oh, so like Luke's or
Luke, yeah. Okay. And one of the ones was Ahsoka. Basically, her lightsaber, which is like a 2-parter one, is a really cool looking one, and that was like sold out as a legacy saber early on. And you can buy for those different blades. You can buy like I think it was like a 20-something inch, and then they have like a 36-inch blade or something, and you can kind of pick between those, and so those went kind of fast.
I also want to mention, if you don't want to build your own droid and you want a heavy-duty droid to take home, and you got $25,000 to spare, you can bring home your very own life-size, remote-controlled R2-D2.
Is it specifically an R2-D2 or an R2 unit?
I didn't see it. I think it's R2-D2. I think it's a replica of R2-D2. $25,000. I wonder if they'd let you control it around the land. I would not.
way.
I would choose not to. People would come up for photos and probably destroy it. So those are the two big shops. Savi's Workshop and Droid Depot, I think, are the big hitters there. But there's also a marketplace that was super cute and quaint. And I gotta say, visually, I think actually my favorite part of Galaxy's Edge. It just felt so real in there, like this little marketplace. It was super, super adorable. They have places like Resistance Supply, the Creature Stall, Toydarian Toy Maker, Black Spire Outfitters, and Jewels of Bith. And each of these little shops, you know, focused on a different thing. Of course, the toy shop was like little handmade toys. Like everything was wooden or metal and handcrafted, it looked like. It was very cool. I really liked that.
And the Creature Shop's really fun if you want to go home with like some really kind of fun, you know, what's that Salacious Crumb?
Salacious Crumb, whatever creature he is. So basically this is the Pandora Banshee version for Star Wars. So if you're familiar with the Pandora, I think they're Banshees, where they sit on your shoulder.
How does it stay on your shoulder?
It's like a magnetic thing. There's a piece that goes under your shirt, I believe, and it just magnetically clips there. And it just sits there. So they sell those at the Creature Shop. The toys were super cute. Black Spire Outfitters, that's where you go and you get your robes and everything, your Jedi robes. And even if you're not going to buy anything, I highly suggest walking through these shops. They're super tiny and quaint, kind of like another place, Wizarding World. And they have like one register in them, but there's a lot of cast members around with iPads, or I don't know what they call them in that world. What do they call them?
Data pads.
Data pads or something like that. And they can swipe your card there. Your credits can be collected there. And it's very, very cute. Like, big fan of that. There was also another merch thing that was the first merchandise, well, aside from outside of the land, first merch you bought were the special Coke bottles available at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. And
yeah, those are quite cool. They're shaped like thermal detonators or something like that in the Star Wars universe, and they have these really cool caps. They've got the the language is all themed to Batuu there.
I saw a lot of people with T-shirts, with like the Coca-Cola T-shirts in the language. I don't know where they got them because I didn't see those sold anywhere.
No,
that must have been an online thing.
Yeah, that's clearly like an online thing that somebody grabbed since the designs broke like well in advance.
Yeah.
But no, those are really interesting, really cool, and surprisingly, there was no limit on them. It wasn't.
No, there was. I think there was a 3 or 4 limit. No,
I got one of each. I was like, I'll say one of each. Like, all right, but I could have probably gotten more. Like,
I remember reading about a limit when they first. I think maybe 3 of each or something.
Lasted, but I don't know.
But it was, they're cool. I mean,
I think there's more than a can, right? We
were looking at, because it's interesting.
13 ounces versus 12.
It was like, I think it was 16 or 14 in the round Galaxy's Edge one versus a normal 12-ounce can, which was surprising because when you look at it, it doesn't look like it's holding that much. But it's one of those things that, like, when they first announced those, people went a little crazy, like, oh my gosh, I gotta get those. And then when the reality came of it getting closer, it was just like, there's so much cool stuff that the Coke bottles kind of became an afterthought. Don't get me wrong, like, there were a lot of people buying them. But if it had been like those sold just in Disneyland Park, like, and the popcorn buckets and all those specialty things go on sale, people lose their minds. And I feel like people would have lost their minds over those Coke bottles if it wasn't stuck in the middle of this brand new spectacular land. So the lines for that weren't terribly long throughout the day, so you can certainly get those.
And those are about $4.50 a whack, something like that.
Probably. Is that about the same as in the park? I don't really buy soda, so I don't know, but not much more if it is.
It was Dasani water, Sprite, Diet Coke, and Coke.
Yeah, all Coke products. And so that's cool. So, the merchandise of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is pretty epic. I do want to say there's a piece of merch out there in the real world that you can purchase before going to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge if you want to do a little bit of homework. There is a novel called Galaxy's Edge Black Spire. So if you want to kind of, hear a new original Star Wars story in novel form and get to know the history of the land and where you're spending all this time, that would be the place to do it. So check that out. I have not done it, but I'm kind of interested in reading it and kind of learning more of the history of the land.
I also saw comics, Galaxy Edge comics being sold at one of the shops. I don't know if those
outside of the land, right?
Yeah, it was in Launch Bay.
Okay.
They had on the first floor, like on the exit after you kind of did the whole merch at Launch Bay thing. Mm-hmm. When you're kind of walking out through the exit, there was a gift shop that had that print that we saw of the Millennium Falcon and stuff, that concept art. But along the counters, they sold comics. So I think there might even be a Star Wars Galaxy Edge #1 comic out there that you can kind of pick up, and maybe that goes into the land as well. I don't know.
I think that those touches are cool. I hope that they don't do too many of them, though, because the thing that makes Black Spire Outpost work and hyper fans not freak out is the fact that there's nothing to compare it to. So there's no, oh, this isn't accurate because in such and such, you know what I mean? So that's the genius of this land, is that it's its own thing. There's no comparing it to something else. So the more and more official stuff they put out there with Black Spire Outpost as part of the story, the tougher it's going to get to stay accurate. So don't make too much of it, but it's still cool. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun. Bring sunscreen. That's all I can say.
They must sell that somewhere. I didn't see it, but I'm sure it's behind a counter.
Yeah, definitely bring sunscreen. We got there, it was like kind of misting and raining, and Jeff was all
I don't like overcast. About it, and I was not moping. I was saying this is annoying. I do not like overcast. I live in Southern California. I expect a sunny day every day.
And I was like, if by 1 in the afternoon it'll be bright and sunny.
And it was beautiful.
And it was bright and sunny.
But it was cool. It was like 70 degrees and breezy. It was
weather
lovely.
was nice, but that's the most dangerous time. You feel kind of cool. You don't feel too hot, but you're getting roasted.
I mean, I didn't. And I got my Italian skin, so yeah. I'm good for now. But you burn up.
Yeah, I had sunscreen on. Yeah. I brought some, but just bring it. Trust me.
Bring some sunscreen. Anything else you want to add about the merchandise of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge before we get going here?
Yeah, it's real cool. It's a lot of fun. I would just say
bring a full wallet.
Enjoy yourself. Yeah, bring some cash. It doesn't have to be cash specifically, but bring money.
Bring credits.
Bring some credits if you need. But enjoy it. It's an experience, and oftentimes, something like $200 for a lightsaber you kind of scoff at, or it's too expensive. It's a fun experience. The blade can detach, so if later you want to revisit Galaxy's Edge, and if they allow some kind of cosplay in a way of like a tunic versus a robe or whatever, they sell belts where you can kind of hang your lightsabers from, at least the hilts, you know what I mean, without the blades attached and stuff. So it's cool. It can be a fun part to a Halloween costume.
I'll be surprised if in the future, like on May the 4th, if we don't start seeing a couple years down the line special events being thrown in there, I'd be very, very surprised.
Yeah, it's just
special ticketed events.
It's just a lot of fun. The merch was done really well. I'm glad they kept the Galaxy Edge themed things outside of Galaxy's Edge.
Me too, except for the bags.
Except for the bags. But yeah, it's done really well, and the merch you can expect outside of the parks to be pretty much comparable to merch of any other of the parks, right? It's like you got some water bottles and tumblers and lanyards and pins and some T-shirts and some hats. Nothing that really blew me away, except for some of those jumbo pins and limited edition pins were really neat and really cool.
I do want to add on, as we're talking about the lightsabers, and I said, only one person can go watch them. I will say in the Droid Depot, even if you don't want to go purchase something, I highly suggest you go in there and take a look at the whole process, because there's no limit like that. You can walk in. There's actually another entrance around the corner if you just kind of want to go in and check out what they're doing, and I highly suggest it. As I mentioned, I didn't really buy much of anything merchandise-wise in there, and I had a great time just checking out the merch. Of course, I was lucky in the situation that I was with somebody who bought a lightsaber, but everything else I got to just go check out and really enjoyed.
And two little the inexpensive merch that we've talked about is those Coke bottles are really interesting and really cool. Something that it doesn't take a lot of money, but gives you a really great souvenir from the land. I thought that the front gate map, I don't know if they're going to change it, but the front gate map was incredible.
Oh, you mean at the entrance to Disneyland? That was a day one map, I think.
Was it?
I'm pretty sure that was a day one map. As a person who has touched and held a lot of theme park maps, this was the most sturdy, well-made theme park map I've ever seen.
Oh, it was cool. Beautiful. It's a beautiful map. Anyways, if they still have some of those, or just a regular standard map is great because it's the first year that they have Galaxy's Edge in there. So if you're a collector of any of those kind of things, maps change over time. And so, you can always get a free one as you walk in and save it and keep it nice. And you never know what that's going to be like down the road. And in the cantina, they've got some coasters.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
And these coasters are super cool looking. You can probably Google search, the cantina coasters and see the different varieties that they have. I'm pretty sure they give you there's different designs on each one, and I'm pretty sure depending on the drink you order, they might give you a coaster for that drink.
I didn't see that.
Or were they just handing
They
them
were
out?
just kind of giving out coasters. From what I noticed, it was busy, so I really, really, really doubt they're paying much attention to what coaster they're giving a what drink. It was very busy
They can
there.
be a little stingy with it and stuff, but I mean, just the coasters, bug them enough, I'm sure you'll get them.
Yeah.
But they're really cool, and you can hang on to those. And the mugs, if you buy a drink, you saw mugs that were cool.
Okay, so, I'll get into this on the food conversation.
Okay.
With
Well, the
Derek.
mugs themselves are kind of, according to Jeff, pretty robust and pretty cool looking. So that's another piece of merch that if you just bought a drink, you actually get to keep the mug as well. If it's is it a special?
there's
special priced one versus.
Oh, they're like $35 drinks because
every drink is.
No,
Or
no,
just
the one
mug
the,
ones.
the collectible drinks are like expensive. You're buying the merch, essentially. So it's very cool. But in any case,
those are some last minute things that are pretty cool.
So that's gonna do it for the merch episode of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Of course, you've heard a bunch of them already. I think by the time this one releases, I think there's one more if I'm remembering correctly. If not, spend all week. Just head to DisneyCoastToCoast.com and check that out. And guys, if you're not following us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, make sure you follow Dizney CTC. That's Dizney CTC over on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.